What I'm going to share with you today might be one of the most important messages that I can send you. And it's the message of purpose. Now, I think there's just no better way to explain this than exactly how you're supposed to discover it. I notice that the only way that you can discover it is if you create peace. Now, most people are too busy trying to go adopt a purpose when all they have in their mind is chaos, insecurities, traumas, unconfronted, aspect of themselves that they don't even connect to. Really, what you're probably looking for is power. And if you want to go look for your purpose, I promise you want to be able to at least give yourself the opportunity to have peace. You know, there was a point in my life, and it's probably the most beautiful point in my life, and it was the point of my life to where I just accepted the truth of myself, what my human nature came with, who I am, what my life is, just as it is. You know, I think we get so used to living on the bit of a fantasy, we really forget what we have around us. I didn't just have this didn't just happen. This is what I believe to be my purpose, to speak truth and to be able to help as many people connect to their own lives as individuals. I believe that sets everybody free when they understand who they are. You know, their trauma is no longer their weight. You know, their desperation is no longer their ugly defeat. It's now everything that you need in order to start your journey, to start realizing perhaps the beauty of who you are and the perfection behind that. Not because it's perfectionistic, but because it's just true. You know, being made by God is a really real thing to question, which is, am I just another head in the crowd, or can I connect to this myself? Can I contribute something here that's unique? And that's a very important thing to ask yourself. You know, I'm here to contribute something unique. And unfortunately, most people are too busy trying to replicate one another, and we lose the most valuable thing that we can have. What is unique? What is one of a kind? What truly matters? What is meaningful? What is personal? That changes the world. And you know, we have more than enough people talking about things they probably don't understand. So to give you a really good stage for this, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. Start looking for peace, and then purpose will come. Now, you're probably not too comfortable with that because your life isn't very peaceful. Look, remember, purpose isn't the solution to all of your problems. It's the beginning of a bunch of new ones. But this time you'll at least know that you have a foundation. So the discovery of peace is very important because it's like looking at the groundwork before you start building it up. And I think that most people don't know this. How do you know you found your purpose? When peace goes out the window. And so the story of my life is one of the most personal things I could share that could really help shine a light on this. You know, I came out of a relationship, I was 21, and I could definitely tell you one thing. The idea of questioning my actions, my character, the integrity of what I presented to others never seemed to be more clear to me than ever throughout my whole life. I'll take that. Maybe you guys are watching this video because you're looking for something to speak to your soul. And I really pray that this does. I came out of this relationship and I just remember for the first time I had a desire to question the integrity of things as they are, you know, to look a little bit deeper. And I believe that this is the beginning of wisdom. And you take Moses at the burning bush, and what makes Moses such a considerable character to free the Jewish people or to be the savior and the redeemer against the tyrannical Pharaoh is that he pays attention to the small things. When a bush burns in a desert, do you just look away? Or do you look a little bit deeper and ask yourself a question? Why does this bush burn and is not consumed? And through that, then God calls Moses, Moses, and he wakes up to the situation, he rises to the occasion. And you could even say that Moses' life is a perfect opportunity to describe this before I get into my story. You know, Moses is somebody thrown into a lot of responsibility, a lot of chaos. Well, you know, he has two mothers for starter. The first thing he had to do was experience what it's like to go down the Nile and dodge a bunch of crocodiles as a little baby. To then, when you think things could get worse, fall into the hands of Pharaoh's daughter. That's like the worst thing if you were a young Hebrew in Egypt at the time. And of course, you know, through the miracle of God, Batya looks at the baby and saw that he was good. It's like, whoa, talk about miracles on miracles here. And she says, we need a wet nurse. And then, of course, Miriam, Moses' sister, says, hey, I know a girl. Goes back to the mother. Moses grows up as a prince of Egypt. He has the ability to understand his roots. Still, he doesn't really quite understand what's being asked from him. It's an existential journey of sorts. And he goes down to his people and he sees an Egyptian man beating a Hebrew. And he strikes down the Egyptian. He then flees for his life. Pharaoh finds out. He finds a well in Midian. What's he looking for? Peace. I just need to get the away from my crazy stepdad who wants to kill me for who I am. Because apparently that's a problem. More existential questions. He fights off these shepherds and ends up meeting his wife at the well. Jethro, his father-in-law, brings him in like his own son. Till the age of 80, he was a shepherd. And so you're kind of thinking about what's the kind of peace that you need to be looking to create for yourself? Well, one, by just being able to understand your own life and how it's amounted to you being in the place that you're in. And then being able to discover the life around you, opposed to running from it. So of course, Moses' purpose comes in once he's able to realize that his life is not just about running from his past, but perhaps about integrating it. And so that's another thing, is that when you are aware of your purpose typically shines a light on the parts of you that you haven't integrated. You're like, you want to find your purpose after you find peace. Well, then go back to the thing that takes away your peace, because now you have intention. And that is exactly the formula that you create in order to start connecting to something beyond yourself. And that's what we understand a life that has meaning is something that isn't just this, not even just this universe, something that is everlasting, something that is infinite. So of course, Moses investigates. And I think that's what people do when they're really looking for something more. They look deeper into the small things. So my life mirrored that in a lot of ways, My party animal lifestyle when I was younger, my really deep religious roots, my intense parents, being the youngest of 7 brothers, and perhaps the expectations that come with that. I came out of this relationship and I kind of adopted this philosophical frame on life. Everything was a question, a philosophical, esoteric questions. I turned to cigars, I turned to journaling, I turned to road trips, I turned to nature. And these are all really good things to do. And I'll tell you what was the giving factor that helped me identify this purpose. I was able, for the first time in my life, to show up for the people around me without having to be someone, and just accepting that I'm not someone, and I don't need to be. I realized who I was to the people around me and how much I mattered to them. I realized how much I gave to the clients that I did work with at the time when I worked in fitness. And I realized the things that I really wanted to do for myself. I was almost set free by just trying to investigate this piece. And I remember this point in my life, I'd go to the beach a lot. I'd bring my journal. I'd go on walks. Very, very powerful thing to do, especially if you feel like there's not a lot of peace in your life. Go on walks. I'd surf all the time, and I remember I'd do that left and right. And I would also watch film. Now, film was very important to me because it would speak to things that were deep, deep inside of me that I called to. Now, of course, this point in my life that I believe is very important for you guys to start investigating. If you have this in yours, maybe you're on it. It was somehow when I started to look at reality around me, when I wasn't staring at my phone every 5 seconds. So the best thing you can do is perhaps maybe get rid of the things that are draining your attention that require zero intention. Drains your attention with zero intention. This was the most beautiful point of my life. I was Naftali. I was me. I got to experience the beauty of myself, my life, who I am to others, what I give to the people as a simple job perhaps. The ego left. I started to become open. And I would do some of the simplest of things. If there was an outing, I'd go out. If there wasn't, I'd stay in. I didn't tell myself I needed to go out anymore. I was more concerned about doing things that I actually was interested in. I felt resistance to some things that I didn't like. Well, didn't do it. What was I really looking for? Just looking for peace. Peace with being me and what that is. One of the most pivotal parts of me being able to discover my purpose was when I went to Laguna Beach, a beautiful place. I used to surf a lot. I don't surf as much anymore. Because, well, when your purpose comes in, you kind of focus on other things. And I just remember this feeling in my chest, and it was just like, this has to mean something. This all has to mean something. And I was looking for some feeling of power, something to get me out of the fog. And I just told myself, small steps, small steps. Can you find peace in the silence? You don't need to be anywhere. You need to be with right now these feelings. And it was almost like I was starting to accept parts of myself, and I would see parts of my nature flare up, very dark. Accept it. I see parts of me that were very charismatic. Accept it. I started to become more familiar with who I am as a human being. I also started to really question the integrity of my values. Now, this is one of the most important things because you need a foundation. And the foundation to at least know that you're not part of the destruction that the world claims they aren't a part of. Every person that I know, at least according to history, that had big ideals for a brave new world has only made the world look brave and new in every dystopian science fiction novel or movie you've ever seen. And it's partially because people aren't aware of how much capacity they have and how dark they really are. So it was almost like I was creating this hyper steadiness. I wasn't reactive. I was cool. And I played a character, Matthew McConaughey, and that really helped me. Be cool, be calm, be with whatever I was experiencing at the time. And so I remember this. I'd go out with my brother. I'd go surfing every week. And I'd hear him talk about business and making money, and the insecurities would come up. And I would say, just be with him. I'd remember I'd go out with some friends, and they're like, hey, I met a girl. And of course, I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. And I'd just be with it. I'd also go around with maybe these strange desires that I would have, go buy that suit. It was still, it was silent. And it wasn't so much about who I could be for others, but who I could be for myself. That was the commitment that I made, and it was a commitment that everybody needs to make with God if they don't want to have an ego, and it is. If there's nothing I can give you in this relationship, and you can give me everything that is required to become the best version of myself, do I accept that? Most people would say, in pieces. If you accept it in your totality, then you will become the best version of yourself for you, no matter what you can give to others. That is somebody who's really connected to themselves. So this peace, this journey to find peace, and I think a lot of people are looking for it. Of course, you can go ahead and do the simplest of things, which is just get your ideas on paper. It can be very foggy up there. Find activities that you could be consistent with. And I remember at the time, one of the things that really helped me was jujitsu. Now, if there's something I could offer zero to, especially at the time, was jujitsu. And of course, I told myself, well, my father's a boxer and I could throw kicks like a motherfucker. No. Welcome to literally having nothing to offer. And this is going to shape you. We're forgetting that surrounds us in our life every day. You've just never showed up for it because you're too busy trying to be somebody and you've never even accepted who you are. The best advice that I can ever give you is to understand the difference between who you are and then who you want to become. If you never accept who you are, who you want to become is a delusion that you hold on to, and we call it a fantasy. And that fantasy keeps you weak, and then your dreams die because you've been holding on to your fantasy. Maybe tomorrow it will happen. You'll get your big break until you become a culprit for evil because of how resentful you are towards God or anything good that requires work, effort, honesty. This mission for purpose is just the beginning. And I often think when you could live your life like you're not trying to run from it is when you can start connecting yourself to a higher dialogue. And this is the last story that I'll leave you with. Think of finding your purpose as a coming-of-age story. We become so fixated on pulling Sir Arthur's sword from the stone, and that becomes your life. Have you guys ever had that? You're grabbing that sword and you're like, if I pull harder. And of course, look, the one thing that makes you pull the sword from the stone is when it's no longer defining you. Because a king isn't seeking kingship more than he understands the responsibility of it and almost, in a way, reveres it. And typically children and people with insecurities are looking for the kind of power behind being a king, thinking they understand what that means. So, you see the sword in the stone and you go, you know what? Not for me. And you could think of it as a group of friends working at a hardware store, and they're making the most out of it. They're looking at the strangers, they're asking questions, they're curious. They're getting lost in the adventure of perhaps the arbitrary warehouse of Home Depot. And they have stories. They're bonding with each other. They're asking questions. They see things they like. They interact with it. They play within their own environment. And eventually they become so invested in their own life, the people that are around them, what they are doing with themselves. They're so okay at the Home Depot spot because of what they mean to others. And then one day they go, hey, I need to cut this thing. Can you hand me that sword? And they grab it right from the stone. And then you go, oh, f***. And that's when your purpose calls back.